6 months. That's how long I'd been married to Daniel Carter. And I was still a virgin. Our wedding night had been awkward but not unusual, I thought. Daniel had kissed my forehead, mumbled something about being tired from the celebration, and fallen asleep with his back to me. I'd lain awake in my white lingerie, staring at the ceiling of our honeymoon suite, telling myself tomorrow would be different. But tomorrow became next week, which became next month, which became half a year of excuses, turned backs, and a growing chasm of silence between us. Maybe he's just stressed, my sister Maya suggested over coffee one afternoon. New job, new marriage, new house. Men process things differently. I wanted to believe her. Daniel was everything I'd thought I wanted. Successful architect, from a good family, polite, well-dressed. Our courtship had been traditional, almost old-fashioned. He'd been respectful, never pushing boundaries, which I'd found refreshing after dating men who only wanted one thing. Now I would have given anything for a husband who wanted that one thing. The rejection was eating me alive. I tried everything. Candlelit dinners, new perfume, silk nightgowns that made me feel both beautiful and desperate. Each attempt ended the same way. Daniel would compliment me politely, then retreat to his study or claim exhaustion. We lived like roommates in a 4-bedroom house that echoed with everything we weren't saying. The night everything changed started ordinarily enough. Daniel had texted that he'd be working late again, the 3rd time that week. I'd ordered takeout, eaten alone at our dining table built for 8, and decided to take a bath with the expensive wine I'd been saving for a romantic evening that would never come. I was 2 glasses in when I heard the garage door. Checking my phone, I frowned. Only 9 o'clock, early for Daniel's recent pattern. I heard his footsteps, heavier than usual, and then the study door closing with a definitive click. The wine had loosened something in me, some tightly wound spring of patience that finally snapped. I was tired of being understanding, tired of making excuses, tired of crying silently in our guest bathroom so he wouldn't hear. I wrapped myself in a robe and walked to the study. The door was closed, but I could hear something, a sound that made me pause. Was he crying? My hand hovered over the doorknob. In 6 months of marriage, I'd never entered his study uninvited. It was his sanctuary, he'd said, his private space. I'd respected that boundary like I'd respected all his boundaries, letting him wall off piece after piece of himself until there was almost nothing left for me. Not tonight. I turned the knob. The door was locked. Daniel, I called out. Are you okay? Silence. Then movement. Something falling, his voice tight with panic. Don't come in. Just give me a minute. But the wine and the months of rejection had made me bold, or maybe just reckless. No, we need to talk. Right now. Emma, please. You're my husband. My voice cracked. I deserve to know why you won't touch me, why you can barely look at me. What is so wrong with me that... The door opened. Daniel stood there, and I barely recognized him. His eyes were red-rimmed, his expensive shirt untucked and wrinkled. But it was the expression on his face that stopped my words. Pure, unfiltered terror. You don't want to know, he whispered. Trust me, Emma. You don't want to know. Try me. He stared at me for a long moment, and I watched something shift in his expression, resignation, maybe, or the exhausted surrender of someone who'd been running for too long. He stepped aside, opening the door wider. Come in then. But don't say I didn't warn you. I walked into my husband's study and into a truth that would shatter everything I thought I knew about the man I'd married. The room was dimly lit, his computer screen casting a blue glow across his face. And on that screen, my breath caught. This wasn't what I'd expected. Not at all. The computer screen showed a chat forum. But not just any forum. The header read SA survivors. Men breaking the silence. Posts filled the screen. Hundreds of them. Stories of trauma and healing, pain and survival. And there, highlighted in the thread list, was a username I recognized. Daniel C_architect. I looked at my husband. He'd collapsed into his leather chair, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Daniel! My voice came out softer than intended. This wasn't the dark secret I'd imagined. This was something else entirely. I was 12, he said finally, not looking at me. My uncle. For 3 years, until I was 15 and big enough to fight back. The air left my lungs. I moved toward him instinctively, but he flinched, and I froze mid-step. Nobody knew? I whispered. My mother knew. She walked in once. His laugh was bitter, broken. She told me never to speak of it, that it would destroy the family, that it was my fault somehow for letting it happen. He finally looked at me, and the anguish in his eyes was unbearable. I tried to tell my father once. He said men don't make up stories like that. That I was confused. That Uncle Richard was a good man who'd never. He couldn't finish. I wanted to hold him, to take away 15 years of buried pain. But I didn't know how. Every instinct I had seemed wrong suddenly. The wedding night, Daniel continued, his voice mechanical now, like he'd rehearsed these words 1,000 times in his head. I wanted to. God, Emma, I wanted to be normal for you. But when we were alone, when it was supposed to happen, I froze. All I could see was his face. All I could feel was his hands. And I knew if I touched you like that, I'd contaminate you with all of it. With everything dirty and broken inside me. Daniel, you're not dirty. What happened to you wasn't your fault. I know that. He stood abruptly, pacing. Intellectually, I know that. I've been in therapy for 8 years. I've done the work, read the books, joined the support groups. But knowing something and feeling it are different things. Every time I think about being intimate with you, with anyone, my body just shuts down. The panic attacks start. Sometimes I can't breathe for hours. I thought about our courtship now with new eyes. How he'd kept our dates public, busy. How he'd never invited me to his apartment. How even our kisses had been brief, controlled, like he was constantly monitoring himself. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Before we got married, I would have understood. Would you have? He looked at me with such raw vulnerability. Would you have really married me if you knew I might never be able to give you a normal marriage? That I might never be able to have sex without having a breakdown? That I can't even handle you touching my shoulder without planning an escape route first? I wanted to say yes, that I would have married him anyway. But I wasn't sure that was true, and the honesty of that uncertainty sat heavy in my chest. I loved you, Daniel said quietly. I love you, and I thought maybe marriage would fix me. Maybe with someone I loved, someone I chose, it would be different. That's what the therapist said could happen. That healthy intimacy could help rewire the trauma responses. He laughed bitterly. Instead, I've just traumatized you too. Made you feel rejected and worthless when you're neither of those things. You're beautiful and patient, and you deserved so much better than what I've given you. I finally closed the distance between us, moving slowly, giving him time to retreat if he needed to. When I reached him, I didn't touch him. I just stood close enough that he could feel my presence. I'm not leaving, I said. Not tonight. Not because of this. Emma. But I need you to understand something. I made him look at me. I can't live in the dark anymore. No more locked doors. No more secrets. If we're going to make this work, if there's any chance of saving this marriage, we do it together. With full honesty. And probably with a lot more therapy. I've been seeing someone, he admitted. Dr. Sarah Chen. For years. She specializes in sexual trauma. But I never told her I got married. She thinks I'm still single. Then our first step is you telling her. And maybe I should come with you. To understand better. To learn how to help. You want to stay? He looked at me like I'd offered him something impossible. I want to try, I corrected. I won't lie and say this doesn't change things. I'm hurt, Daniel. I'm angry that you didn't trust me enough to tell me. And I'm sad, so sad, for what was taken from you. But walking away right now would make me feel like I'm abandoning you. And I can't do that. For the first time in 6 months, my husband cried in front of me. And for the first time, I held him while he did. Dr. Sarah Chen's office was nothing like I'd imagined. Instead of the sterile clinical space I'd pictured, it was warm, soft lighting, comfortable chairs, watercolors on the walls depicting peaceful landscapes. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes and a calm presence that immediately put me at ease. "Thank you for coming, Emma," she said as we settled into our seats. Daniel sat between us, his knee bouncing nervously. "Daniel called me after your conversation. I think this is a brave step for both of you." The first session was mostly listening. Dr. Chun explained trauma responses, how the body stores memories that the mind tries to forget, how sexual abuse, especially childhood sexual abuse, could create complex associations that lasted decades. "The shame is often the most persistent symptom," she explained. "Survivors frequently feel they're damaged goods, that their trauma makes them unworthy of love or healthy intimacy." "Daniel, you mentioned feeling like you would contaminate Emma. Can you tell me more about that?" Daniel's hands clenched. "When I think about being intimate with her, part of me wants it desperately. But another part, the part that's still that 12-year-old boy, tells me that sex equals violation. That if I initiate anything sexual, I become like him. Like my uncle." "That's a common fear," Dr. Chan said gently. "Your uncle stole your ability to see sexuality as something mutual, consensual, and beautiful. He taught you that sex is about power, control, and harm. Unlearning that is incredibly difficult work." Over the following weeks, I learned more about trauma than I'd ever known existed. I learned about triggers and flashbacks, about disassociation and hypervigilance. I learned that Daniel's inability to touch me wasn't rejection. It was his nervous system's attempt to protect both of us from what his body had learned to associate with danger. We started with homework assignments. Small ones. Dr. Chun called it building positive associations. Week 1, hold hands for 5 minutes each evening. Just hold hands. It sounds simple. It wasn't. The first night, Daniel's palm was so sweaty I could feel his anxiety pouring through his skin. His breathing was shallow, controlled. After 3 minutes, he had to stop. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "I'm trying. I swear I'm trying." "I know," I said, releasing his hand. 3 minutes is 3 minutes more than yesterday. By the end of week 1, we could hold hands for the full 5 minutes. Daniel even smiled once. Week 2, sit together on the couch. Physical proximity without pressure. We watched movies neither of us paid attention to. I learned to read his body language, the subtle tension in his shoulders that meant he needed space, the slight lean in my direction that meant he was okay. We were learning a new language together. "I've been doing research," I told Dr. Chun in our third session. Daniel was running late from work, so it was just us. "About supporting partners with sexual trauma. Some of the advice seems contradictory. Some sources say to never initiate anything. Others say survivors need their partners to lead, sometimes to learn they can trust them. What am I supposed to do?" "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I want my husband back. The marriage I thought I was going to have." I stopped, hearing my own words. "That sounds selfish." "It sounds honest. Emma, you're also a victim here, not of abuse but of deception by omission. You entered this marriage with certain expectations that Daniel knew he couldn't meet but married you anyway. Your feelings of betrayal and loss are valid." I felt tears coming. "I feel so guilty for being upset. His trauma is so much worse than my disappointment. Pain isn't a competition. You can hold space for both truths, that Daniel suffered terribly and that you're suffering now too. You don't have to martyr yourself to be supportive." That session changed something in me. I'd been so focused on not making Daniel feel worse that I'd buried my own hurt. That night, I told him everything. "I feel cheated," I said. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, our new safe distance. "I feel lied to. I feel like you let me fall in love with a version of you that didn't exist. And I hate that I feel this way because I know you're hurting. But I'm hurting too." Daniel. He didn't get defensive. "You're right. I did lie. I convinced myself it was by omission, that it would work out, that love would be enough. But I stole your choice. I'm sorry. Where does that leave us?" "I don't know. But I'm willing to fight for this if you are. Not because I think I can be fixed or made normal, but because I love you and I want to build something real. Even if it looks different than what either of us imagined." Week 4 of therapy brought a new assignment. Emma initiates a hug. Daniel's only job is to receive it and notice his response without judgment. The first hug lasted 10 seconds. I could feel every muscle in his body rigid, ready for fight or flight. But he didn't pull away. By week 6, Daniel initiated the hug. By week 8, he kissed my forehead without me asking. Progress wasn't linear. Some weeks we slid backward. Daniel had a breakthrough in therapy, a recovered memory of his uncle's initial grooming behavior, and couldn't stand to be in the same room with me for 3 days. I had my own breakdown when my sister announced her pregnancy, and I realized I didn't know if Daniel and I would ever have the kind of intimacy that creates children. But we kept showing up. To therapy, to each other, to the messy, complicated work of trying to build a marriage from ruins. 3 months into therapy, I thought we were making real progress. Daniel had started sleeping in our bed again instead of the guest room. We'd graduated to cuddling while watching TV. He'd even initiated a kiss. A real kiss, not just a peck, that had lasted almost a minute before his breathing changed and he needed to stop. Then came the anniversary party. My parents had planned it as a surprise, a celebration of our first year of marriage. They'd invited everyone, family, friends, colleagues. Daniel had been anxious about it all week, but I'd assured him we could handle a few hours of socializing. I didn't know his uncle would be there. Richard Carter arrived fashionably late, all smiles and expensive cologne. He was my father-in-law's brother, a successful businessman with a charismatic personality that filled every room. I'd met him briefly at the wedding, where Daniel had gone pale but pushed through the obligatory handshake. "There's my favorite nephew," Richard boomed, crossing the backyard toward us. "And his beautiful bride. How's married life treating you two?" I felt Daniel's entire body lock beside me. His hand in mine went rigid, trembling slightly. I looked at him and saw something that terrified me. He wasn't there anymore. His eyes were vacant, his breathing shallow and rapid. "We're fine, thanks," I said quickly, trying to position myself between them. "Actually, we were just about to." "Nonsense. I haven't had a proper chat with Daniel in years." Richard clapped a hand on Daniel's shoulder, and my husband flinched so violently that several people nearby turned to look. "Don't touch him," I said, surprised by the steel in my own voice. Richard's smile flickered. "Excuse me?" I said, "Don't touch my husband." I moved fully in front of Daniel now, creating a barrier. "He doesn't like to be touched without permission." "Emma, what's gotten into you? This is my uncle you're talking to." My mother-in-law had appeared, her face pinched with disapproval. Richard was just being friendly. "I need to leave," Daniel whispered behind me. His voice sounded young, broken. "I need to leave right now." We left. I drove because Daniel couldn't stop shaking. He didn't speak the entire 20-minute drive home. When we pulled into our garage, he got out of the car and vomited in the bushes. "I'm sorry," he gasped when he could speak. "I'm so sorry. I ruined everything." "You didn't ruin anything. He did. That monster did. Everyone will know now. Your parents, your friends. They'll all know something's wrong with me. The only thing wrong is that a predator was allowed into our space, and nobody protected you. Not your parents then, not at the wedding, and not tonight." My phone started buzzing. Texts from my mother, my sister, Daniel's parents. I turned it off. That night was the worst since our confrontation in the study. Daniel couldn't calm down. His panic attack lasted hours. Hyperventilating, dissociating, repeatedly saying, "I'm 12 years old," in a voice that made my heart break. I called Dr. Chen's emergency line at 2 a.m. "Stay with him," she instructed. "Keep him grounded. He's having a flashback. His brain literally thinks he's back in that moment. Use his name. Remind him of where he is, what year it is. Physical touch might help or might make it worse. Let him guide you." "Daniel," I said softly, sitting across from him on our bedroom floor. "Can you hear me? It's Emma. It's 2024. You're 32 years old. You're in our house. You're safe." His eyes slowly focused on me. "Emma, I'm here. You're safe. He can't hurt you anymore." But he was there. He touched me. Daniel's face crumpled. Why does he get to be fine? Why does he get to walk around smiling and successful while I'm still broken? You're not broken. Yes, I am. He slammed his fist against the floor. I'm so broken that I can't even be a proper husband to my wife. I can't give you what you need. I can't give you children or intimacy or a normal life. All I can give you is this. Crying on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m. because someone touched my shoulder. Then that's what you give me, I said. Because I'm not leaving, Daniel. Not when things get hard. Not when you have flashbacks. Not when your family protects your abuser instead of you. I'm staying. Why? The question was almost a sob. Why would you stay? Because somewhere under all this trauma is the man I fell in love with. The man who leaves me notes in my lunch. Who remembers I take my coffee with extra cream. Who cried at our wedding because he said he couldn't believe someone like me would choose someone like him. I crawled closer, slowly, giving him time to refuse. And because I made vows, for better or worse. And maybe this is our worse, but we're still standing. Still fighting. That has to count for something. Daniel let me hold him then. We stayed on the bathroom floor until dawn. Not talking, just breathing together. The next morning brought consequences. Daniel's mother called, demanding an explanation for our rude behavior. My father wanted to know why we'd made a scene. And Richard himself sent a text. If I offended Daniel somehow, I apologize. I've always cared about him deeply. I wanted to scream reading that message. The gaslighting, the manipulation, it was textbook predator behavior. I want to confront him. I told Dr. Chan in our emergency session that week. I want to tell everyone what he did. That's not your story to tell, she said gently. It's Daniel's. He gets to decide who knows and when. I looked at my husband. What do you want to do? Daniel was quiet for a long time. I want to tell my father. Not everyone. Not yet. But him. He deserves to know why I've been distant for 20 years. Why I left for college and barely came back. His voice cracked. Why his brother destroyed his son. That's incredibly brave, Dr. Chun said. Will it help? Daniel asked. Will finally saying it out loud to him make any of this better? I don't know, she answered honestly. But living in silence hasn't made it better either. Daniel asked me to be there when he told his father. We met at a coffee shop on neutral ground. Not his parents' house with its memories. Not our home. Somewhere anonymous where Daniel could leave if he needed to. James Carter arrived looking confused and concerned. Daniel said this was urgent. Is everything all right with you too? No, Dad, Daniel said. His voice was steady, but I could see his hands shaking under the table. Everything hasn't been all right for a very long time. Then he told him. Everything. The full truth that had been buried for 20 years. I watched James Carter's face cycle through emotions. Confusion, disbelief, horror, and then something that looked like physical pain. When Daniel finished, his father sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. James started, then stopped. When you tried to tell me, you were 15. I thought, I didn't believe. You told me I was making it up, Daniel said quietly. You said Uncle Richard would never do something like that. That I was confused. I was protecting my brother instead of my son. Tears streamed down James's face. God forgive me. I was protecting a monster instead of my child. Mom knew, Daniel continued. She walked in once. She told me to never speak of it. That it would tear the family apart. James's expression transformed into something terrible. Patricia knew? All these years. She knew and never told me. She made me promise to keep quiet. Said it was for the good of the family. There is no family, James said, his voice breaking. Not if this is what we protected. Daniel, I don't know how to make this right. I don't know if I can. But I believe you now. And Richard will never be welcome in my home again. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't healing. But it was something, an acknowledgement, a first step. The fallout was nuclear. James confronted Patricia, who denied everything at first, then crumbled when he threatened to leave her if she didn't tell the truth. She admitted to knowing, to choosing her family's reputation over her son's safety. She cried and apologized, but some betrayals are too deep for simple sorry. James confronted Richard, who denied everything and threatened legal action for slander. When James persisted, Richard cut off contact with the entire family. Some relatives believed Richard's denials. Others chose silence. But a few, Daniel's younger cousin, a family friend, came forward with their own stories. Richard Carter had left a trail of victims, and Daniel's courage had finally lit a match to expose it. As for us, the earthquake that shook Daniel's family foundations also shook our marriage. But in a strange way, it helped. There were no more secrets, no more performances. We could finally be honest about everything, the progress and the setbacks, the good days and the bad. 6 months after the confrontation, we had our first breakthrough. Daniel initiated more than a kiss. He initiated actual intimacy. Tentative, nervous, with multiple stops and starts, but real. It wasn't perfect. He dissociated midway through and we had to stop. But he came back to himself in my arms, and he was crying but also smiling. "I did it," he whispered. "I was there. With you. Me, not the past. For a few minutes, I was actually present." "You were," I confirmed. "And we'll keep trying. As many times as it takes." Took many more times. Months more of therapy, communication, trust building. Some attempts failed completely. Others were better. Slowly, painfully, we built a new kind of intimacy. One based not on physical perfection but on radical honesty and patience. A year and a half after I'd walked into Daniel's study, we finally consummated our marriage. It wasn't the passionate, romantic first time I'd once imagined. Daniel had a panic attack 3/4 of the way through, and we had to stop and breathe together for 20 minutes before he was calm. But afterward, lying tangled together in our bed, both of us crying for different reasons, it felt sacred in a way I hadn't expected. "Thank you," Daniel said, "for staying, for fighting, for not giving up on me even when I'd given up on myself. Thank you for trusting me enough to show me the broken parts," I replied, "for believing we could build something real from them." 2 years after our wedding, on our actual anniversary, we renewed our vows. This time with truth. "I take you, Daniel, knowing exactly who you are," I said, "with all your scars and strengths. I promise to be patient on bad days, to celebrate progress no matter how small, and to build a life with you that honors both of our needs." "I take you, Emma, grateful for your courage and grace," Daniel said. "I promise to keep showing up, keep doing the work, and to build a marriage based on honesty, even when honesty is hard. You saved my life. The least I can do is share it with you." Our marriage wasn't conventional. We had rules and boundaries that other couples didn't need. There were still triggers and bad days. I'd probably never have the spontaneous, effortless physical relationship I'd once imagined. But we had something deeper. A partnership forged in the hardest fire. A love that chose to stay even when leaving would have been easier. And sometimes, on the really good days, Daniel would smile at me with no shadows in his eyes. He'd reach for my hand without thinking about it. We'd make love without panic. Just two people choosing each other again and again. Those moments were worth fighting for, worth staying for. 3 years after our wedding, Dr. Chun graduated us from weekly therapy to monthly check-ins. Daniel had processed enough of his trauma that it no longer controlled his everyday. He'd found purpose in advocacy work, speaking at survivor support groups, helping other men understand they weren't alone or broken. "You know what I realized?" he told me one night, wrapped up together on our couch. "My uncle tried to destroy me. He tried to make me believe I was worthless, damaged, unlovable. But he failed. Because I'm here. I'm healing. I'm married to someone who sees all of me and chooses me anyway. He didn't win." "No," I agreed. "He didn't win. You did. We did." Our story didn't have a fairy tale ending, but it had a real one. Messy, complicated, and hard one. A marriage rebuilt from ashes. A love that chose to stay when everything said to run. And sometimes, that's the most powerful kind of love there is.